करुणा प्रचुर हेन प्रभु कोथा गेला आचार्य ठाकुर कहाँ मोर स्वरूप रूप कहाँ सनातन कहाँ दास रघुनाथ पतित पावन कहाँ मोर भट्ट जुग कहाँ कबीरा एक काले कोथा गेला गोरा नदरा पाषाण कुतिबो माथा अनले पशिबो गौरांग गुणेर निधि कोथा गेले पाबो से सब संगीर संगे जे कोइल बिलास से संग न पाया कांदे नरोत्तम दास से संग न पाया कांदे नरोत्तम दास जे आनिलो प्रेम धन करुणा प्रचुर हेन प्रभु कोथा गेला आचार्य ठाकुर हेन प्रभु कोथा गेला वामन गोस्वामी ठाकुर हेन प्रभु कोथा गेला त्रिविक्रम गोस्वामी ठाकुर भक्ति वेदांत श्रीला वामन गोस्वामी जय भक्ति वेदांत श्रीला वामन गोस्वामी भक्ति वेदांत श्रीला त्रिविक्रम गोस्वामी भक्ति वेदांत श्रीला त्रिविक्रम गोस्वामी हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल
Anuradha, Didi, you there?
Yes, Haribol. Sorry, give me one moment, but if you could please
Haribol.
just begin.
Okay, it's fine. Maraj, the devotees, welcome to Bhakti Zoom. Thank you all for joining. Sorry, I want to apologize for my last minute mix-up. I've just been working, so I didn't have the opportunity to I'm not meant to be the host today, so apologies, Maraj. But I want to firstly start by introducing Sripad Bhaktivedanta Bon Maharaj, who's going to speak on the glories of Srila Bhakti Vedanta Vam Goswami Maharaj and Srila Bhakti Vedanta Trikun Goswami Maharaj, who are so dear to our Srila Gurudev and us. We're so fortunate to be in this circle of great acharyas and be under their guidance, and the likes of Sripad Bon Maharaj, who travels around the world preaching what they've taught. We're so fortunate today to hear from him the glories of both our acharyas, and without further ado, without any hesitation, Sripad Bon Maharaj, we would like to invite you to speak some glories, Maharaj. Thank you so much for agreeing also to come and speak on this program. It means the world to all of us. Hari Hari Bol, Dandavat Pranams, Maharaj.
Haribol. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्ध्रस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुर्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। गुरवे गौरचन्द्राय राधिकायै तदालये कृष्णाय कृष्णभक्ताय तद्भक्ताय नमो नमः। वन्दे गुरुपदद्वन्द्वं भक्तवृन्दसमन्वितं श्रीचैतन्यं प्रभुं वन्दे नित्यानन्दसहोदितं नन्दनन्दनं वन्दे राधिका चरणोद्यं गोपीनां समयुक्तानां वृन्दावनमनोहरम् तवैवास्मि तवैवास्मि न जीवामि तया विना एते विज्ञायते राधे तं नयामि चरणान्तिके वंशे विभूषितकरान्नवनीरदाभात् पीताम्बरादुर्नबिम्बफलादृष्टात् पूर्णेन्दुसुन्दरमुखाद् अरविन्दनेत्रात् कृष्णात् परमतत्त्वं किमपि अहं न जाने। न विजाचे राज्यं न च कनकमाणिक्यं न विभं न जाचं रम्यं सकलजनकाम्यं वरवधूं मे सदा काले काले प्रमथपतेन गीतचरितो जगन्नाथ स्वामी नयन पथगामी भवतु मे। जगन्नाथ स्वामी नयन पथगामी भवतु मे। हा देवी काकुभर गद गदयद्वाचा जाचे निपत्ति भुवि दंडवरुड्भटार्ते हस्स प्रसादमुपदस जनास कृत्वा गंधर्विके निजगणे गणनां विधे। अंगश्यामलभिषटामन्दी कितन्द्री वरं जड्डं जाचो गुरुरोचिषं पट्टं वरस श्रिया वृंदावन वृंदावन स्वप्रधर्मणं सा प्राविशद श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि श्री गौरभक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। First of all, I offer my humble, respectful Dandavat Pranam, lotus feet of my spiritual master, Nitya Pravishtam Vishnupad, Ashtotara Satasistrimad Bhakti Vedanta Silavan Goswami Maharaj, and Shikshan Sanas Guru Nitya Pravishtam Vishnupad, Ashtotara Satasistrimad Bhakti Vedanta Silavan Goswami Maharaj. Simultaneously, offer my humble, respectful Dandavat Pranam, lotus feet of Nitya Pravishtam Vishnupad, Ashtotara Satmad Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Gauranga Goswami Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Rakha Sridhar Goswami Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj, Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj, and all senior devotees and all Vaishnavis, and presented all of my respectful guests. So just I want to speak few words. Today is very super excellent, auspicious day, because today my Gurudev Nitya Lila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtotara Satasya Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Srila Vaman Goswami Maharaj departed from this material world and attained to serve the lotus feet of Srimati Radhika in transcendental world Golok, Vrindavan. And also Shiksha Guru Nitya Leela Prishtam Vishnupad Ashtutra Samad Bhakti Vedanta Srila Trivikram Goswami Maharaj also departed from this material world and attained the lotus feet of Srimati Radhika in Golok Vrindavan. So at a time, two acharyas, Nityalila Prishna Bhaktivedanta Srila Bhavan Goswami Maharaj and Srila Nityalila Prishna Vishnupada Ashtotra Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Srila Trivikram Goswami Maharaj disappearance day. So today, early in the morning, now you also celebrated their disappearance day, and also discuss about their life history and contribution. So my Gurudev Srila Bhakti Vedanta Srila Bhavan Goswami Maharaj, he was born in East Bengal, Purva Bangla, now he is called Bangladesh. And in his early age, he also left his house and came in Navadvip Dham Parikrama and completely surrender lotus feet of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada. After Navadvip Dham Parikrama, his mother told him he had to return back his home. And that time, my Gurudev, his name was Santosh Kumar Brahmachari. He was Brahmachari, only 8 to 9 years old. So very nicely he told, I have come in my real house. And also I now am taking shelter, lotus feet of my real mother and father. That means in this way, Gurudev taught to us how the bona fide disciple completely, absolutely surrender lotus feet of Guru Pad Padma. Though he is the eternal associates of Srimati Radhika and the eternal associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but in their sadhak form, teaching to us how to surrender lotus feet of Guru Pad. Sei se param bandhu sei pita mata Shri Krishna charan jai prema bhakti data. One who gives prema bhakti in our heart is called real our parents, is our real mother and father. For this regard, Gurudev told, who is our real mother and father? One who completely manifests the prema bhakti, highest prema bhakti of Guru Vrindavan. That means Manjari Bhav. He is called our real mother and father. So saying, Tameva Mata, Tameva Pita, Tameva Bandhu Sakasya. In our Vedic literature, very clearly explain, oh my Lord, you are my mother, you are my father, you are my all in all. But here, Gurudev taught to us how bona fide disciples surrender lotus feet to his Guru. Then he realized, bona fide Guru is my real mother and father. So that time Santosh Brahmachari, he completely surrendered lotus feet of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, and he did not go back his house. Then Gurudev he served to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, and Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada very pleased with him and also gave him Harinam. This simply, he every day chanted 64 rounds. I direct heard and listen from the lotus mouth of Gurudev. Every day he chanted 64 rounds, right? And also served all Vaishnavas. And Prabhupada very pleased with him and also give some classes about some slokas. Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada, he told the small children, those who are came in that time, and Prabhupada told, if you learn one slok, then I will give one chocolate. So my Gurudev, his memory, commit of memory, that is called Smaran Sakti, but that is called the unique and unparalleled. My Gurudev, he learned every day 7 to 8 slokas or sometimes 10 slokas. So Prabhupada also gave him 10 chocolates. And other brahmachari, they learned maybe 1 slokas. And but Gurudev, he learned and every day many slokas. And in this way, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada also inspired all his and students how they develop their spiritual life. And Srila Gurudev served all Guru and Vaishnavas. And Gurudev told, as like Narad Rishi, when he used to come in front of the sadhus, and that time Narad Rishi only he was 5 years old, and he served the sadhus, just cleaning the place, cleaning the and plate of the sadhus, giving some water in their pot, and also took some remnants from sadhus. And that time sadhus very pleased with him, and sadhus also gave him mantra. In the same way, Nityalabha Vishnupada Bhakti Vedanta Srila Vamana Goswami Maharaj, he also served all the Vaishnava in Chaitanya Math Mayapur. And so for this regard, Prabhupada, Bhaktivinoda Prabhupada, very pleased with him. But Srila Gurudev, when he was very close to Narahari Prabhu, everybody called him the mother of Gaudiya Math. Because Narahari Prabhu, day and night, always engaged to serve Guru and Vaishnava. And sometimes he could not get time to chant holy names. Night time, and everybody took rest. Then Narahari Prabhu just chanted holy names, and sometimes his sleepiness coming. For this regard, he also put the rope on his sikha and hanging on the wall. And when sleepiness coming, then again we come chanting holy names. So Narahari Prabhu, and in this way, he also chanted holy names and servicing Guru and Vaishnavas. So in this way, my Gurudev Srila Vamana Goswami Maharaj, that means Sajjan Sevak Brahmachari, always associate with him and also serve to Guru and Vaishnavas. Because Shastra is saying it this way, Bhakti coming from the pure devotees of love. Bhakta Sanjate Bhakta. So Suddha Bhakta, only everybody have to associate with pure devotee of Lord. Suddha Bhakta Sangha. So for this regard, Chaitanya Chaitamritam explained, Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastre Koi, Labamatra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Koi. 1 moment and a half moment, if you associate with Sadhu, then you will attain your highest perfection. When also Shastra saying, associate with always like-minded devotee, that is called Sajatya Asa Snigdho Satuvari. Srila Rupa Goswami Pad quoted this verse in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Sajatya Asa Snigdho Satuvari. Srimad Bhagavatam Nama Rasa Asaddati. Sadhu Sangha. So in this way, Sajjan Sevak Brahmachari, he associate with also Vinod Vihari Brahmachari, and love and affection with him. Gurudev told, mostly I associate with Vinod Vihari Brahmachari, that means Nityalabha Vishnupada Tarasman Bhakti Pragyan Kesav Goswami Maharaj, and also Narahari Thakur. the Narahari Prabhu. So then Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada also admitted in the school of Bhakti Vinod Institute. And every day he also used to go to school, but one day very rain, heavy rain. So Narahari Prabhu, he told him, yeah, today is a rainy day, so maybe school will be closed, so no need to go to school. So for this regard, Santosh Brahmachari, he also washed his clothes, dhuti. That time one brahmachari, one dhuti, not many dhutis. So for this regard, Santosh Brahmachari, he also washed his dhuti and just put the kamcha. This way. And he was cutting the sabji with Narahari Prabhu. In the meantime, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, he came down from the first floor to downstairs and met with Narahari Prabhu. And he told the Sajjan, he is not going to school. Then Narahari Prabhu, he told, oh, today is rainy season, heavy rain, so he will not go to school. For this regard, he also washed his dhuti cloth. But Prabhupada, just very soft way, and he told, no, you should not leave the school. That means you should go to school. Just Prabhupada very softly, he told these things. Then Sajjan Siva Brahmachari thinking, oh, that means Prabhupada, he wants, I have to go to school. Then he thinking, what will do now? My cloth already washed and wet. So what will do now? Then he just prayed to Nishingadev. Oh, Nishingadev, how will fulfill that these are my Guru? Gurudev told me, yeah, I have to go to school. By my cloth completely what? Wet. What to do now? Then after few minutes, when again Gurudev entered in his room, then he saw his cloth completely dry, looked like someone and placed and ironing in there. Then Srila Gurudev went to school. After 4 p.m., when Sajjan Seva Brahmachari returned back from school, then Prabhupada asked, I heard you also washed your clothes. So how did you go to school? That time Srila Gurudev told everything. Just I prayed to Lord Nishingadev, then I saw all my cloth completely dry. Then Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada embraced to him and tears rolling down. Then he uttered this place, uttered these slokas, how Lord Nishingadev very love and affection with his devotee. That is called Bhakta Vatsalya Nishingadev. La Nishingadev ki jai. Then Prabhupada also gave him this mantra, Nishinga mantra. And in this way, his Atimartha Charitra, Gurudev, his life history that is called super and excellent. His Charitra is there, life history is. And how Lord Nishingadev always to carry on his devotee and is any problems. And for this regard, Srimad Bhagavad Gita also explained this way. And Ananasyantanto mang jijana prajupasete tesa nuttavi juktanang yugak semam vaham. This look absolutely appropriate in this lila, how Lord Krishna always carry on everything's for his devotee. So my Gurudev and is very learned and scholar this way. Then Prabhupada after Prabhupada departure, before Prabhupada departure, Prabhupada also gave him Harinam, because that time and brahmacharis not and to receive Harinam from Guru. Well, at least 3-4 years when they used to stay in temple, and then time also giving Harinam. But Prabhupada departed from this material world. Then Srila Gurudev, he received Diksha mantra from Nityalila Vishnupada Ashtottara Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj. And that is very nice, beautiful, this Leela also. And when Bhakti Siddhanta Prabhupada departed from this material world, something also happened in our Gaudiya mission. And that time some brahmacharis, sannyasis, they also in the jail. So when Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj, that means Vinod Bihari Brahmachari, he was in the jail. That time also Sajan Sevak Brahmachari, he received Diksha mantra from Vinod Bihari Brahmachari. But his secretary sanskar, that is called Upaniyan sanskar, they also performed by Jajavar Maharaj. I mean, Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada's sannyas disciple, Srila Jajavar Goswami Maharaj. So, in this way, Srila Gurudev always staying with Vinod Bihari Brahmachari, and he was staying with Vinod Bihari Brahmachari and doing bhajan and sadhan this way. Then, when Vinod Bihari Brahmachari, he also established Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti, and that time 4 persons in the member of this Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti. And that is called, one is called Srila Bhakti Vedanta Srila Vaman Goswami Maharaj. Second, his uncle, that is called Narsingh Maharaj. And also Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj. And another 4th, that is called Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj. That time his name Abhay Charan De. In this way, 4 persons, the member of Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti. Then Srila Gurudev completely surrendered lotus feet of Vinod Bihari Brahmachari, the Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj. Guru Seva. My Gurudev always intends. The Guru Seva is very important in our spiritual life. This Guru Seva, 2 types of Guru Seva. One is called Bani Seva, another is called Bapu Seva. Bapu Seva means to serve to Gurudev physically serve, and wash his cloth, and washing his cloth, and cook for him, and massage his lotus feet, etc. This is called Bapu Seva. Or Bani Seva, listen Hari Katha and preach all over the world. That is called the Brihat Mridanga Seva. This is very important. And all our Goswamis, they fulfill all the desires of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That is called Bani Seva. The Bani Seva is very important. That means I am not saying the Bapu Seva is useless. You don't think this, don't take my any offense. And also this is important. But Bani Seva is higher than Bapu Seva. So Bani Seva is very important. For this regard, Srila Gurudev, Srila Vaman Goswami Maharaj, he always to write the Patrika, and Srila Param Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj, he dictated and any Hari Katha, and he wrote down in the paper. And next day, going to the press. My Gurudev, his handwriting is very nice and beautiful, attractive. And like Rupa Goswami Pad, handwriting. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explained, Ruper hater likhon jano muktar pati. Rup Goswami Pad handwriting as like beautiful and pearls. In the same way, my Gurudev handwriting was very beautiful and attractive. And sometimes also saying, if you see, sometimes Gurudev Bhaman Goswami Maharaj's handwriting, very clear. And sometimes Gurudev Bhaman Goswami Nan Goswami Maharaj is saying, that sometimes brahmachari sannyasis are writing and something very difficult to read or read. Just give an example, you put the ink on the legs of the spider and put the spider on your paper, then you will see. In the same way, handwriting is good. So that means my Gurudev handwriting is very beautiful and attractive also these things. And no need to edit anything. And all his slokas is complete in there. Sometimes Param Guru Maharaj, he did not speak the whole slokas. Maybe first line he spoke. But my Gurudev also writing the whole slokas. And writing in these slokas. My Gurudev's memory is very sharp. Tejasvi. He can also explain that which this sloka is coming from where and which edition of this granthas. And only not in the slokas number. He remember everything because his memory is very good. For this regard, all Gaudiya Vaishnava called him Gaudiya Dictionary, Avidan. If you have need any slokas, then just to ask to Bhaman Goswami Maharaj, this sloka is coming from where? Then we explained. Once I also asked to Srila Gurudev, how many slokas do you know? That time he told 7 days, 7 nights. And if I speak, my slokas will never finish. Is there a lot of slokas? And not only is coming in the temple, before in his household life also, when he was in the school, that time he did not open his books, just sitting in there. Then one day his teacher asked, do you understand what I am speaking? He did not give any answer. But you are not open your book, so why do you? And that time nearby his friends told, oh, if you tell, he can speak everything. And without opening his book, that time his teacher test, then he explained everything in this way. And no need to speak. And I asked Gurudev, how many times you read these books? But sometimes you just open the book. One day, and he read whole books and everything he did. Then well, you ask me any slokas from any page that he will speak. And in this way, just a look, then his memory is coming in this way. Everything. And my Gurudev always absorbed in chanting holy names, Nam Sankirtan. So Gurudev always saying, if any disciple asks to him, Gurudev, give me mercy, kripa karo, kripa karo. Then Gurudev just giving one answer, chant holy names. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains, there are 26 qualifications of Vaishnava. Vaishnava 26 gun. We say all the qualities of Vaishnavas manifested in my Gurudev. That's God. Kripalu, Akratidho, Satta Samasar, Vadanno, Kovi, Daksha, Mauni, everything is good. Very expert he is. And he's very shy also. But when he sang this song, very nice, beautiful, he's also tuned. And everything is expert. And so sometimes Gurudev Nan Goswami Maharaj glorified about Vaman Goswami Maharaj. And Gurudev told, that means Sanitara Bhaktivinoda Vaman, Nan Goswami told, you don't know your Gurudev. I know him. I was staying with him 60 years. So I know about him. So for this regard, in the appearance day of Vaman Goswami Maharaj, Srila Gurudev Nan Goswami Maharaj, he glorified about him. Through Gurudev's life history and contribution, he preaching everywhere, especially he preached in Bengal and Chabis Pargana, that place. Param Guru Maharaj, he also preached Bengal and Chabis Pargana, because that places people are very strict. So for this regard, and also worked in the field. For this regard, Bengali people are saying, if you want to preach in Bengal and Chabis Pargana, so you have need and 3 pairs of and shoes that get choti, and just 1 month. Not so easy, and you walking in there. So Srila Gurudev and preach in there also. And my Gurudev, he also love and affection with all his God brothers. Especially he has love and affection with Srila Trivikram Goswami Maharaj and Nityalila Purusham Vishnupad, Ashtotara Sadmat, Bhaktivedanta Srila Nan Goswami Maharaj. Srila Gurudev Nan Goswami Maharaj always is glorified. Jai Vaman Goswami Maharaj, he brought me Navadvip station to Devananda Gaudiya Math. Srila Gurudev told, when I left my house and arrived in Navadvip railway station, Navadvip Dham station, that time completely was dark. No electricity, nothing. That time also not also electricity. That there is kerosene lamp. There is a lantern there. So when train arrived in Navadvip station, and that time everybody also going here and there. Then Srila Gurudev Srila Vaman Goswami Maharaj asked him, "Oh, are you Tiwari?" That time Srila Gurudev told, "How do you know my name is Tiwari?" That means Gurudev title that is called Tiwari. So that time he told, Jai Gurudev, he also sent me to bring to temple. And so when Gurudev arrived in temple, that time Gurudev told, that means Nan Goswami Maharaj, he told, he told, "Hey Gurudev, all my love and affection of my parents, of my wife, of my children, offer you lotus feet." That is called Sarva Atma Samarpan. That is called how to completely, absolutely surrender lotus feet of Guru Pad. That time Param Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj, he embraced to him and tears rolling down to him. That time Gurudev told, actually that time I received the mercy of my Guru. Then Vaman Goswami Maharaj, he also engaged to serve the lotus feet of my Gurudev. And whatever I have need, then Vaman Goswami Maharaj, he also gave to me. So in this way, and Srila Vaman Goswami Maharaj, Srila Trivikram Goswami Maharaj, and Srila Gurudev Nan Goswami Maharaj, 3 also already engaged to serve Guru Seva. And for this regard, in our Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti, they are called 3 Devata. And generally, everybody know 3 Devata, that is called Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. And Vasudev also quoted one verse, Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Actually, this verse recited by Vasudev Goswami in his Grantha. Gurudev is as like Brahma. So in the same way, in Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti, Srila Bhakti Vedanta, Srila Vaman Goswami Maharaj is as like Brahma. Brahma's duty to creation. That means according to the rules and regulation of Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti, only one Acharya Guru. So Vaman Goswami Maharaj, he gave the mantra to the disciples. In this way, he creates the Suddha Bhakti. Or Srila Trivikram Goswami Maharaj, he is called Shiva. Shiva's duty to destroy everything. Destroy is what? Destroy all the anarthas from the heart of the devotees. So in the same way, Trivikrama Goswami Maharaj Harikatha is very powerful Harikatha. Can destroy all the anarthas from our heart. Main anarthas in the heart of the conditioned soul, what the jiva's anartha, that is called Dehatma Bhiman. That is called bodily conception. In this, so for this regard, bodily conception is called the root of all the anarthas. All the causes of the anarthas, that is called bodily conception. I am this body. So for this regard, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Srila Trivikram Goswami Maharaj, when he used to speak Hari Katha, then he started here, Jiver Sarup Hai Krishna Nitya Das, Krishna Shakti Vedar Aved Prakash, Vedaved Prakash. So you are Jiver Sarup Hai Krishna Nitya Das. He used this, he is starting in this. And he also, all the living entities, they are called the part and parcel of Lord. Mama Ivangsa Jivo Loke Jiva Bhuto Sanatana. So for this regard, he established these things. And how to perform all kinds of anarthas. And he always used this Harikatha in his Harikatha, especially conditioned soul. They have attached with their wives, their children, their wealth, money. They. So for the Trivikram Goswami Maharaj, always taking one hammer, and how do you this way? So Trivikram Goswami Maharaj Harikatha mostly also use this way. You have to crush all the anarthas in our heart. Our Srila Gurudev Nan Goswami Maharaj Harikatha, very sweet, that's called Braj Harikatha. For this regard, every use this word is as like Vishnu. Vishnu duty to the nourishment to the all the living entities. In the same way, Srila Gurudev Nan Goswami Maharaj, he nourishment all the followers of Srila Nan Vaman Goswami Maharaj. That time Nan Goswami Maharaj, he did not give Diksha Mantra according to the rules of Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti. But he nourishment all the disciples of Vaman Goswami Maharaj. Sometimes Srila Gurudev joked, then Nan Goswami joked with it. Oh, you are giving birth the baby, and I am cleaning your baby's stool. This way, they are in this way, they are love and affection. This is called loving and quarrel. So this way they can. And sometimes Trivikram Goswami Maharaj Katha is very sweet also. They are love and affection to each other. How they are love and affection to each other. For this regard, the three pillars of Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti, very strong. For this regard, the Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti is very strong, and this way I am preaching. And Guru Bhakti, Guru Nishtha, this is the backbone of our sadhan and bhajan. So this is very important. And Trivikram Maharaj Goswami, and he is very strict. Just a few words. My time also almost finished. More 20 minutes. I have to glorify about also Trivikram Goswami Maharaj. And he was very learned and scholar. And he got that degree from university, that is called bachelor degree. And then he left his house when he joined with Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti and completely surrendered Lotus Veda Bhakti Pragan Keshav Goswami Maharaj. Then his wife also came. His wife was told, if you have to return back my home, you married with me. So why did you marry with me? Why? You have to come back. That time Trivikram Goswami Maharaj told, no, I have to perform bhajan and sadhana. Because the human life is very, very rare. Trivikram Goswami Maharaj, he told, just I learned one sloka Srimad Bhagavatam. Labdha sudurlamidam Bahū sambhavante manusya arthavam manusya arthavam anityapi. Turnam jata napate numittum javat nisasya visa kholu sarvatasat. Trivikram Goswami Maharaj, sometimes he also recited this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. Labdha sudurla midam idam. This human body is very, very rare, especially human body, very, very rare. After 8.4 million species, then Lord mercifully give us the human body. And only the human body you can practice devotion service to Lord. And as like Bible very clearly quoted this word, God created man after his own image. That means God creates the many living entities, cats, dogs, animals, but he did not get satisfied. Then finally, he created the human being as like him. So for this regard, so Trivikram Goswami Maharaj, he recited this verse, where Labdha Sudurlamadam Bahu Sambhavante. The human body is for serve to Guru and Krishna. And so Trivikram Goswami Maharaj told, in this life I completely surrender lotus feet of my bona fide Guru. I would not go return back my home. Then his wife told, if you not go back home, then I will also and commit sacrifice, commit suicide in front of you. And maybe I put the kerosene, kerosene oil, and on my body. Then Trivikram Maharaj, okay, just to, okay, then he told, okay, now we put this kerosene and also and put your, then I put the matches on your body. Then his wife returned back. So how Trivikram Goswami Maharaj was very strong. And Trivikram Goswami Maharaj was speaking was very direct, not any soft words. And Srila Gurudev was very soft and sweet and calm and quiet and politely speak. But Trivikram Goswami Maharaj was very direct, not speaking any other ways. He's speaking always speaking direct and cutting this everything, these things. So Trivikram Goswami Maharaj Hari Katha is very powerful Hari Katha also. And for this regard, everybody called him as like Shiva. Asla Gurudev Nan Goswami Maharaj is as like Vishnu nourishment to all the followers and fulfill the desires of his Guru Vargas. And Srila Gurudev, Srila Vaman Goswami Maharaj, he wrote many also granthas and translated Bhakti Siddhanta, Prabhupada's grantha, and also Bhaktivinoda Thakur granthas and many granthas were. Grantha Prakasha. He always told, everybody have to preach and also distribute this grantha as like Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. He fulfilled the desires of his Guru Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada. And so Gaudiya Vaishnava means these were always preaching this way. And he always saying this way, two things. Preaching depends on two things. One is called manpower, and this is called money power. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada once he told, if I have money, then I will buy one aeroplane. And then his disciple asked, so what will do aeroplane? Well, I very quickly I will go one corner to another corner of the world and spread the message of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in the same way, in our aim and object, how to preach, spread all over the world the message of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu indiscriminately distribute this highest frame that is called Anarpita Charing Chirat Koruna Avatirna Kalu Samarpayatu Unnato Ujjara Bhakti Sriyam Hari Purra Sundar Dudu Kanva Sandir Pita Sada Hidaya Kandare Spuratuva Sachinandan. Sachinandan Gaurvari. He did not discriminate who is qualified or who is unqualified. Jare deke tare dan prema bilaya. Whatever who is coming and he displayed the high frame. This thing. And for this regard, Narahari Thakur also sang this song. And Jadi Gauranga noito tabe ki hoito kemone doritam de. রাধার মহিমা প্রেম রস সীমা জগতে জানাত কে। Sometimes also, if in this age of Kali, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would not appear, and how will you realize the last limit, the highest limit prem of Srimati Radhika? That is called Srimati Radhika's highest mode, that is called the Madanakka Mahabhav. And in the same way, sometimes we are singing, Jadi Narayana Noita, তবে কি হইত কেমনে ধরিতাম দে রাধার মহিমা প্রেম রস সীমা জগতে জানাত কে। Even Narayan Goswami Maharaj would not appear in this Kali Yuga. Who can glorify the highest prem, last limit prem of Srimati Radhika? So Gurudev Narayan Goswami Maharaj, and he indiscriminately distributed the highest prem and to everywhere, everywhere. Even he manifested the highest grantha, and that is called Gita Govinda. And before Gurudev, no one can manifest this grantha Gita Govinda, and only Bengali or and other language. But Gurudev manifested this grantha in English, and sometimes some devotees, some people, they also then complain, why did you manifest this highest grantha? Where is the only Singaras Katha is there? Who is qualified to read Gita Govindam? That time Gurudev boldly told in his one lecture, and if not any qualified and person to read this Gita Govindam, and so this Gita Govindam would be disappear. There must be someone here in this material world, so they can read. He can read. And so for this regard, Gurudev, he manifested the Gita Govindam Grantha. The highest Grantha is there. Singar Bhav mood is there. And everything is there. So Gurudev, and the contribution of Srila Gurudev, this guy unique and unparalleled. So Gurudev life history and his distribution in this material world. So always we thinking how Gurudev is boldly preach all over the world. This is because if you speak something, then automatically what? Many people also speak against to you. This is the nature of the Kali Yugas. This is the nature. If you speak the truth, then many people will be speak against you. This is the nature. So Srila Gurudev, he boldly speak. Especially just I tell to Srila Gurudev when he was preaching in America, that time some disciples of Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, they gave up Guru Mantra, they gave up their sannyas, they gave up their sikha, they gave our sacred thread, everything. But Gurudev is very kind and love and affection with everybody. And Gurudev also caught their choti, also gave everything. And Gurudev mostly glorified about Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. When I was traveling with Gurudev, I saw the 5 days whole program. Gurudev at least 2-3 days, he only glorified about Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. And so for this regard, Shastra saying, who is qualified to Shiksha Guru? Diksha Guru, everybody can. Okay, take Diksha, this is another thing. But Shiksha Guru should be and always glorified about his Guru. And this way. Then he will be there and we realize about his Guru. So for this regard, Srila Gurudev Narayan Goswami Maharaj told, your Guru, Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, is not ordinary person. He is very near and dear to Srimati Radharani. I am not going through the Rasa Vichar, but Srila Gurudev also mentioned, your Gurudev is very near to dearest Sakhis of Srimati Radharani. And Radha Dasam is there also. And anyhow, I am not going to this point, but this point is that Shiksha Guru's symptoms, he always glorified about his Diksha Guru. Because sometimes disciples, they don't know about his Diksha Guru. And so for this, the Siksha Guru's duty, how to glorify it about his disciples Diksha. This is very important. Otherwise, how possible disciple know about his Guru? And this is very important. So for this regard, Srila Gurudev and his how his magnanimity and magnificent always is glorified about Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. For this regard, most of the Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj disciples, they completely and attached with Srila Gurudev and listen to Hari Katha and preach all over the world. So again and again, I bow down my forehead, lotus feet of Srila Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta, Srila Narayan Goswami Maharaj, Nitya Lila Prishtam Vishnupad, Ashtuthura Satasmad Bhakti Vedanta, Srila Trivikram Goswami Maharaj, Nitya Lila Prishtam Vishnupad, Ashtuthura Satasmad Bhakti Vedanta, Srila Vaman Goswami Maharaj, and all the disciples of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, and Nitya Lila Prishtam, and all the disciples of Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj. Srila Gurudev ki jai. Jai Jai Shri Radhe. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. When we speak Guru Tattva, automatically what? The four names automatically coming. And their relationship, how they are relationship to each others. This is very important. Bhaktivedanta Srila Vaman Goswami Maharaj, Srila Bhaktivedanta Trivikram Goswami Maharaj, Srila Bhaktivedanta Srila Narayan Goswami Maharaj, or Srila Bhaktivedanta Srila Swami Maharaj. And that is called Gaura Parivar. And I remember this when Gurudev was preaching in Italy. That time one devotee they also written, oh, we are not Gaudiya, we are ISKCON. That time Gurudev came back and he gave who is Gaudiya and who is convert and who is the perfect disciple of Swami Maharaj. He gave very nice, beautiful class. I just remember in Italy. And so Gurudev boldly preached this way. And so all we also surrender lotus feet of our Guru Vargas coming in this disciplined succession and give respect to all our previous acharya. Vancha Guru Kripa Sindhu Vivacha Paditanang Pavane Po Vaishnave Namo. Jai Srila Gurudev Ki Jai. Jai Jai Shri Radhe. All the audience and those who are listening my Hari Katha and the glorification of my Gurudev, Trivikram Goswami Maharaj, and Srila Gurudev and Sai Maharaj. And if I have any faults, you also purify my heart and giving blessing to me. Because today is very super auspicious day. Guru Vargas Abhirbhav, Tirobhav means they also direct meet with Srimati Radhika, especially and disappearance day. Disappearance day means his what? Direct he meet with his Ishtadev and servicing. So today, Sri Trivikram Goswami Maharaj, Srila Vaman Goswami Maharaj, direct to serve their Ishtadev Srimati Radhika. So Gurudev and all Guru Varga, they very pleased. So I go down my forehead, their lotus feet, Asasya Dasya Visabhanu Jaya. And only my hope, one day I will become the maid of Srimati Radha Rani. Bolo Radha Rani ki jai. Jai Jai Shri Ram. Jai Srila Gurudev ki jai. Guru Varga ki jai. Jai Jai Shri Ram. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Or yeah, it's very sweet. Maharaj, Vaikanas Maharaj, Tidandi Maharaj, and others also. I pay my obeisances, lotus feet of all to you. Give blessing to me. Hare Krishna. Jai Vaikanas Maharaj ki jai. Jai
Sripad
Maharaj ki jai.
Maharaj ki
All
jai.
devotees ki jai. Jai Jai Shri Radhe. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Yes.
वो शिविर महाराज जी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद तिजानी महाराज आपसे कुछ बोलेंगे तिजानी महाराज प्लीज
I'm so grateful, Pujapad Bon Maharaj, for your katha today. You have opened out our remembrances, of our most beloved Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Goswami Maharaj, and also Srila Sripad Maharaj, their potency, their power to carry the Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti forward. And with Bhaktivedanta Narayan Swami Maharaj was heading up the Western section of that preaching. And you are certainly following that yourself personally. You are so much tucked in with their mercy, traveling probably more than any other sannyasi that I know of around the world. We are so appreciative, Maharaj, of you coming on and speaking these beautiful kathas to remind us of the speciality of Guru Nishta, of our connection with Guru. So essential. Without this, our life is useless. So you have demonstrated this very beautifully. Thank you, Maharaj. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Maharaj.
You are so kind. You are only the Godrum Vasi, I know. You are Brijavasi and also Godrum Vasi. Bhaktivinoda Thakur so much glorified about this verse, Godrum Vasi and Navadvip Vasi, Godrum Vasi. Without the Godrum Vasi, Navadvip Vasi, how can enter in Braj? Godrume Nityananda Mahajan, Patiyache Namhatta Jivero Karan. In the same way, Godrume Hitidandi Maharaj, Patiyache Namhatta. You are so kind, Maharaj. Sometimes you listen your Hari Katha and boldly speaking, especially you also and give the Hari Katha about Jaiva Dharma and now giving Hari Katha about Chaitanya Chaitamrita also. Okay, thank you, Maharaj. And you are so sweet and kind to us, those who are unqualified, but always giving shelter. Your lotus feet, Maharaj. I know about you, you are so kind and love and affection. Okay, thank you. And in this disciplinary of our Guru Vargas, he give blessing to us also. And okay, thank you. Also, Bikanos Maharaj, so kind, love and affection to everybody. And speaking very sweet Hari Katha. Thank you all to you.
When I heard you were speaking, I had to change our schedule. I was listening on the YouTube stream, and then I ran to our temple and turned on the Zoom, because when you were speaking, it brought back so many wonderful memories and moods. You mentioned about our Srila Prabhupada bringing, we were following him, but when he left, there was so much turmoil, and many of us gave up our practice, and Gurudev brought us back. And I remember during that time, it was very difficult for us to learn to adjust to the culture of Gaudiya Math. Like, we are ISKCON, we're not Gaudiya Math. We didn't understand Gaudiya Math. And when we first came, it was a little challenging. And when I first came in 97 to Parikram, Gurudev did a yagya, fire yagya, and you did it. You were the one that performed the ceremony, and then he just gave us mantra again, right? But I remember you were the one that did that. And then over the years, I remember after you took sannyas and I left everything when I was about 52 and came to India. And then very quickly, Gurudev gave us sannyas very unexpectedly, and sitting on the stage and learning from you and Tirtha Maharaj and others. No, but especially on this day, because tomorrow is our disappearance of our. And every year I would hear you glorify your Gurudev in separation. And I remember learning, this is how you speak about your Guru. This is how you do. And then over the years, I also watched, everybody very closely. And I always saw how strict and determined you were, how disciplined, giving, even during the parikram when everybody was so busy, if you had a chance, you would still be giving an extra class to people. And when that wasn't happening, you'd be pacing back and forth chanting and living that ideal life. You've always been a very good example. And I've heard Gurudev say some very wonderful things about you. And so I've always taken inspiration and happiness in your company, and whenever getting to hear your katha, I always feel very happy, very, very happy. So thank you so much.
All the devotees. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Okay, my time is over. And so, thank you.
बहुत बहुत
Can go down my forehead. Notice with all the Vaishnavas, all the audience, and give me mercy. And you can serve Guru and Vishnu. Hare Krishna.
thank you so much again, Sripad Bhaktivedanta Van Maharaj. We are so beyond grateful that you could come on and glorify all the acharyas. You very easily glorified all four. Srila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Maharaj, Srila Bhaktivedanta Trivikram Goswami Maharaj, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, and also Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, whose Viravatithi is tomorrow. And just the very sweet exchanges between all of our sannyasigan is very, very sweet. Srila Gurudev, he left behind many, many gems. And Sripad Bhaktivedanta Van Maharaj is one of those gems. Sripad Bhaktivedanta Tridandi Maharaj is one of those gems. Sripad Bhaktivedanta Vaikanas Maharaj is one of those gems. So we are very, very fortunate to be able to hear from them, especially on a day like this when we are seeking the mercy of Srila Vaman Goswami Maharaj and Srila Trivikram Goswami Maharaj. So without further delay, I will want to continue with one of our gems, Sripad Bhaktivedanta Vaikanas Maharaj, who will continue the Pushpanjali offering unto our exalted personalities today. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshul Militan Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Gurave Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravajantam Anupeta Apeta Krityam Tapayano Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tanmayataya Tadavo Binedus Tam Savabhutam Hridayam Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Abhaktya Vihina Padada Lakshay Kliptascha Kamari Tarangamadye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapanna Brinde Namaste Charanada Vindam Tavevasmi Najivami Tvayavina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayanam Charanandike Vancha kalpatarubhascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So we begin by offering our most humble, grateful obeisance under the lotus feet of our beloved Diksha Guru, Sri Nitya Lila Pavishta Om Vishnupad Asto Tarsat Sri Simad Abhayacharanavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada, to our beloved Shiksha and Sannyas Guru, Sri Nitya Lila Pavishta Om Vishnupad Asto Tarsat Sri Simad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, and to our beloved Shiksha Gurus, Sri Nitya Lila Pavishta Om Vishnupad, Asto Tarsat Sri Simad Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Raj, and Sri Nitya Lila Pavishta Om Vishnupad, Asto Tarsat Sri Simad Bhaktivedanta Trivikram Goswami Raj, and all the assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. So, this special day, a very special day. It brings back wonderful memories and also painful memories of the actual disappearance of these personalities. When I joined full time, just at the time the Kartik month when Srila Trivikram Maharaj disappeared, and then following that, Srila Vaman Maharaj, both were very traumatic because they were so intrinsically connected with our Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And as Sripad Maharaj mentioned, these three had an extraordinary relationship, and they did something which is very rarely seen in spiritual institutions. The three of them were so closely connected in spirit, in mood, like inseparable brothers, that after the disappearance of Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj, they worked together in harmony in a way that you rarely ever see. Okay? That in fact, when Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj did leave this world, and he left early, actually, it wasn't expected. And of course, it was devastating. They were actually quite young sannyasis. They had taken sannyas in what was it, 1952 or 54? I can't remember which year, but they were all in their early 30s at that time. And they had been given sannyas. They were told by Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj that I want to give you sannyas. And I know this because Gurudev told me this personally, because when he wanted to give me sannyas, I said, I'm not qualified, and gave so many reasons. And I said, but if you tell me to do it, I'll do it. I don't have qualification, but I'll do it, and I hold on to your lotus feet for the rest of my life. And then he said, this is the right answer, because when our Guru Maharaj told us to take sannyas, we told him we were not qualified. And he said, but this is not your decision or determination to make. The Sri Guru will make that decision and will empower you with that, right? If you surrender to him. And so we said we weren't, but we took sannyas. And there's a picture of the three of them together on the stage, both at the time of the ceremony and then later different pandals. And you can see how young they are, but how grave they are, right? How extraordinarily grave. And they worked conjointly under the guidance of the Guru Maharaj for the next, say it was 52, then that would be for the next 16 years, they worked cooperatively serving their Guru Maharaj. And then after the disappearance of Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Goswami Maharaj, they had to do the samadhi ceremony and then had to negotiate the very difficult transition. Now, how will the mission of the Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti go on? Right? Because as Sripad Maharaj mentioned, Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti had been formed in, 1942, by those four personalities, including our Guru Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada. He was one of the original signers on the trust, but now who will continue it? And there are a lot of India, there's a lot of difficulty because properties in the trust managed under the direction of an acharya, the transition can be very tricky. And oftentimes there's legal cases. Who will take over? Disciples fight over the property. I'm going to manage this. No, I'm going to manage that. And usually that's the case, But these three were so close together in mood and desire to serve their guru without any false ego. So one godbrother of Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj, very dear friend and associate, who also had a mat in Navadvip, Bhakti Sri Rup Siddhanti Maharaj, whose appearance day is 2 days from now. Tomorrow is the disappearance of our Srila Prabhupada, and the next day is the appearance of Sri Rup Siddhanti Goswami Maharaj. And he was, so he was senior to them, godbrother of their Guru Maharaj, and he had succeeded his own godbrother, but the acharya of the mat that he served under, Bhakti Vivek Bharati Goswami Maharaj. He had been under his guidance for so many years. And when Bhakti Vivek Bharati Maharaj left this world, he took over. So he was very learned and experienced, and he arranged for all the legal matters to be settled and assisted in the samadhi ceremony, which can be very traumatic for disciples, and very traumatic to do that. And he assisted them and comforted them. And then it came time to decide who's going to take over. This has not been discussed. And of course, he first asked Srila Vaman Maharaj because he was senior, right? Because he had joined in the early 1930s when he was just 8 years old, 8 or 10 years old, had come under the shelter of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, and then had taken Diksha from Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj when he was only 16. And so you should take over and be the Acharya. Oh, I have no desire to do this. I don't want to be that Acharya. Srila Vaman Maharaj, we heard about how qualified he was, how learned, how self-controlled, what a wonderful disciple, but he also had this extraordinary humility, which came out in so many ways in his pastimes related by Gurudev and others. And Sripad Maharaj, if he had time, I wish he could have spoken for like 5 hours or 10 hours, because much more would have come out. Very difficult to speak everything on your mind in such a short time, because there were many pastimes that he could have filled out so much more, right? And so, but he didn't want to. He said, I know. So then he went to Trivikram Maharaj, who had joined next, maybe 1945, maybe 44, something like that, prior to our Gurudev. And he said, no, I don't want, I never want to take disciples. I don't want this position. Now, these are two very qualified personalities. And so they went to Gurudev, and Gurudev said, oh, no, I'm the most junior of all. I have no qualification. I don't want. So instead of fighting for everything, they were all completely, no, I want to serve my God brothers, in this mission. So finally it was decided that Srila Vaman Maharaj would take it over as the Acharya. But he took it over with the complete support of our Srila Gurudev and Srila Trivikram Maharaj. And as Sripad Maharaj described, they helped each other. They served in different ways in the mission. But it was always said that they were like one soul, because they were completely united in the service mood. And they were without ego. So even though Srila Vaman Maharaj was taking disciples, when Gurudev had gone to Mathura in the early 50s, and when that mat had been bought, he was put in charge of that by Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj. So when Srila Vaman Maharaj in 1968 became the guru, different disciples he would send them to Gurudev, and Gurudev would nurture them and nourish them and protect them like his own. And in fact, many of those personalities, like Sripad Maharaj himself, Tirtha Maharaj, so many others, Maharaja, they were all put under the shelter of Gurudev. That they had such a, Srila Vaman Maharaj had no sense of abhiman, that this is my disciple, he belongs to me. He always felt that, like genuine guru, I am the caretaker. I am the representative of my Guru Maharaj, who was a representative of his guru all the way back to Mahaprabhu himself, to Radha and Krishna. And so because they were so confident in one another, he put them under the direction of Srila Gurudev, and Gurudev would nurture so nicely. And so that it goes back to that analogy that was made, that Gurudev said, you are giving birth to so many, you're like the creator, you're like Lord Brahma, but I have to maintain. And he was maintaining not just disciples, but also so much of the management of the mission, right? Because Srila Vaman Maharaj, even when he became the Acharya, he would also continue to travel constantly. During the time of Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj, he was always traveling, especially in places like Assam, very difficult places. And sometimes when Navadvip Parikram would come up, he would appear at the Parikram, right? And then Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj would say, why are you here? You should go and preach. Just as when Nityananda Prabhu would come to the Rath Yatra festival, Mahaprabhu had very confidential talks with him and said, sometimes you don't have to come, that you should continue your preaching mission. And so Sripad Maharaj mentioned about the ways to serve Sri Guru directly by, the Bapu, but also by Vani, by the instruction of Sri Guru, right? So in his earlier life, in his earlier days, Sajjan Sevak Brahmachari had been able to serve directly Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj. So many service he did. He was so qualified from the young age. There's a beautiful story of one time he was very sick. He had a very high fever, 100, 304, which is quite uncomfortable if you've ever had that. And he was lying in bed, but a large number of godbrothers came to the mutt, and cooking had to be done, and there was no one to do it. Sajjan Sevak Brahmachari is very expert. And so Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj said, you must cook for my godbrothers. You can be sick later. And he had one of those sicknesses, those Indian fevers. They could go on for days and weeks. But he dutifully got up with that raging fever and he cooked for all those people so nicely, so wonderful, so tasteful, so much mood, so much bhav in his cooking, right? And everybody was so satisfied. And after that, he went back to rest. Miraculously, within a very short time after that, his fever left, right? And he became healthy again. In his youth, we heard about when he was a small boy, he would do seva, going to school, but he also would put out plates for the brahmacharis, the mat vasis, put out salt, lemon, water, then clean up afterward. He also, for many years, in these old bathrooms in the mat, they didn't have indoor plumbing with pipes and everything. They had an outhouse, and in the outhouse would be a large pot. And you would do your business into the pot, and then periodically someone would have to take it out and dump it in a nearby field. He did that seva as well, without any consideration. Oh, I'm this, I am that. I came at a young age, I'm so important. No. Very, very simply, very, very humbly. And when, after the disappearance of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, when that's when the fighting started out, and there was contention amongst different disciples of Saraswati Prabhupada, who should get this, who should get that. Some disciples conspired to frame Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj, who was still Vinod Brahmachari, and some others, and had them falsely charged with murder. So they were thrown into jail. And once you're charged in India, it's very difficult to get out. It's very complicated. We had that similar experience in Bombay. There was a murder committed on the grounds of the temple after the installation of the temple. It had been plotted out, and many of the devotees living there, Mahabhuti was there, were thrown in jail, like Mahabhuti. And it took a long time to get him out. I didn't get thrown in jail because they said, the police want to see everybody. I said, I'm not going down there. All that went down there were thrown in jail. I hid out. And so I was able to take prasad to them time to time. But Sajjan Sevak, he would cook for them all. And he would also do all the legal business. He was only 16, but he went to the lawyers, went to the courts. All of that he took on his head. And also maintained the mat, did the cleaning, did the cooking for the deities. And so his initiation, Ban Maharaj mentioned that the reason that he was given Diksha at that time through the bars is because the devotee said, he's cooking, he's serving to the deities, but he doesn't have Diksha. And is it really a bona fide offering? Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj had no such sense because he had a much higher vision that how does an offering really take place? Who does Krishna accept? right? Accepting the love and devotion of high-class devotees. But on the request of all the devotees in the jail, yes, okay, I'm going to give him the mantras. And then the formal ceremony was carried out by Bhakti Jayava Maharaj, right? And so he continued that, maintaining the temple, going to the courts, and cooking and serving the devotees there until such time that they were released, right? And so he was expert in every way, and he was also expert in editing and in transcribing. And so Bhaktivedanta Keshavaraj had reestablished the printing presses after the, you could say, the breakup of the Gaudiya Math. One group sold the original printing presses and did not continue the publishing. But Bhaktivedanta Keshavaraj had great desire to do that, just like our Srila Prabhupada. They knew the Manabhishta of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada. And so Sajjan Sevak was engaged in the printing and editing. And one thing that they would do was that whenever Bhaktivedanta Keshavaraj would speak, he would write down. Or sometimes he would say, we need an article about this or that, and Bhaktivedanta Keshavaraj would dictate. And Bhaktivedanta Keshavaraj, having that Smaran Shakti that Sripad Maharaj mentioned, he was a Shrutidar. He would hear something once and would remember it perfectly. Perfectly. And so he would transcribe the lecture or the dictation of Bhaktivedanta Keshavaraj, and then transcribe it and then print it for their publications. Right? And one time, they had this old-fashioned press. I don't know if you've ever seen it, being younger. It's 2 plates and 1 lever. And you typeset on the plates, then you pull the lever, boom, and 1 page is printed. Boom, 1 page. But you pull the lever and it presses very hard so that the printing is done properly. And one time his finger got caught in that press. He was doing things so rapidly. And I've heard from Vaishnavas in years following, devotees in the Math, that actually he lost a piece of his finger. Sometimes it said it was severely damaged and cut off in so many ways. But upon hearing this, Bhaktivedanta Keshavaraj was very distraught. And he immediately ran to that place, embraced his son, because he was like his son. He had been given at a young age to be put under the care of Vinod Brahmachari. So they had that relationship from the time that Srila Vamaraj was like 10 years old, 8 years old. And Bhaktivedanta Keshavaraj had so much Vatsalya Prema for him. Just like in Jaiva Dharma, when Raghunath Das Babaji developed that mood towards Brajanath very quickly. A sincere devotee has that relationship with his guru. And so he immediately arranged for him to go to the hospital. And I've heard, now I don't know if there's hagiography or what, but his finger the digit was off, but it grew back. Or maybe it was so badly damaged, they thought it couldn't be saved. They taped it up or whatever, but it was restored by the desire of Bhaktivedanta Keshavaraj, right? Because he's such a sincere sevak. And he was so pukka. If you've ever seen a picture of him as a young man, as a teenage boy, even in the simple garb of the Gaudiya Math, dhoti, just like a chadar slung over him like that. Srila Prabhupada was the same way. Srila Gurudev was the same way. The simplest cloth they could make look like royal robes. He looked like that. He looked like that. And Maharaj mentioned about his handwriting. I've told this story before when we were talking about Radha Kund, but one time, one godbrother of mine, Prem Ras, took me around Radha Kund, and we visited the house of a widow of a famous Panda who was part of a famous lineage. And she had books of all the different people that had visited and been guided by her husband, late husband. And she pulled one out from the early 50s, maybe 51, something like that. And she showed us a signature of Sajjan Sevak Brahmachari, right? And it was written in ink, fountain pen back then, no ballpoint pens. And he wrote in English. He signed in English. I don't know why. He could have signed in Hindi or Bengali, but he didn't. Maybe for future generations. And some appreciation, because you would do that, some appreciation. And his handwriting, there were no lines on the book, but his handwriting was so fine and so elegant. It's true. It was quite astonishing, very, very beautiful, to see that. This is him in much later time. And also, yeah, no need for editing. That point, his memory was so good that whatever Bhaktivedanta Keshav said, he would just write perfectly, right? And his own articles, if you have ever, now, Bapu and Bani, how do we connect with such a person? I came a little late. I didn't go to any of the Navadvip parikrams when he was intimately engaged with Gurudev and Srila Trivikram Raj. And the first one I went to in 2002 or early 2003, he was already in internal bhajan. He wasn't talking with anybody. Maybe very occasionally he would speak. But mostly what happened was they said, oh, if you want darshan, you can come. And they would dress him up very nicely in the morning. And they filed us into his room, and he was just sitting in a bed. And he had a smile on his face, but he was just staring, unseeing externally. He wasn't seeing, at least it didn't seem like it. I don't know what he was seeing. I know that he was internal, though. And we just filed by him. And I thought, wow, I'd never seen anything like this before. Remember, this is now we're becoming newly acquainted with the Gaudiya Vaishnava culture, right? So much different. ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada did something extraordinary and glorious in introducing Gaudiya Vaishnava culture into the West. But it always had a flavor of Western samskars, because we could only practice and apply it according to our own habits, our own nature. And Srila Prabhupada didn't have as much time he wasn't in every temple. He wasn't associating with us all, and he had to adopt according to our qualification. And so coming to the Gaudiya Math, everything was so different. And I have to say, in the beginning, quite uncomfortable. I remember when we first went that year to Navadvip and we walked into that beautiful Devananda Gaudiya Math. We didn't know where we were, what we were doing, and we didn't know the layout. So we all came off the train and buses and we're walking through, and then all these Indian brahmacharis. I remember Maharaja's brother was there and some others, and they were watching us. And when you go into that temple, there's a Natya Mandir, its own separate raised platform with a roof. And then there's a gap, it's raised up, and then down is the floor. And then there's a raised temple, right? The mandir of the deities, Radha Vinod Bihari and Vrahadev and Srila Saraswati Prabhupada. But obviously there's a place where you don't wear shoes, but we didn't know anything. So we're walking in and shoes. We go, oh, yeah. And then they look at us, scornfully, oh, you barbarian Western Videshis, and we felt like that. I felt so low that we didn't know any of the etiquette. But of course, being full of false ego, sometimes there's some pushback. Oh, yeah, they don't know what we did. They think they're just ringing bells, and we were preachers. And, there's this dichotomy. And it took a while to appreciate the Gaudiya culture. But it was by association with devotees like Bhamaraj and others that you could come to understand it and the nature of it, that it was born in the realm and the land that Mahaprabhu appeared in. And it was born in the tradition of temples existing in India for years and years. The etiquette, the behavior, the interactions, all of that. That was the real culture. And we just had sort of a boss. The underlying principles that Srila Prabhupada taught us, that was real bhakti. But our appreciation of all those things that assist bhakti and create that environment, we didn't have so much appreciation. So we went in, but one older sannyasi, I was sitting down, he spoke to me and he asked me, "What is your name?" And I said, "Janardhan Das." And he just looked at me and he nodded and he was friendly. And this was Sripad Madhusudan Maharaj, I found out later, the uncle of Ban Maharaj, you know. So Ban Maharaj he came from for a very exalted family, right? Exalted family. So, Ban Maharaj, he did become the guru, or the acharya rather, for this institution, but he was so humble that when it came to the time every year to celebrate his Vyasa Puja, all the devotees would make very elaborate arrangements and, call for him. But almost every time he wasn't to be found. He would always sneak out and go off preaching somewhere, and they would never, and even when they tried to make sure that he couldn't escape. Like Mahaprabhu, they would sleep outside his room in the locked door of the Gambhira, and somehow or other he would escape and then go out running on the beach in Puri, right? And they'd have to look for him. Somehow Van Maharaj would escape, and very rarely were they able to actually get him there to observe his Vyasa Puja. And when he did Vyasa Puja, just like Gurudev, he would teach us that on that day you glorify your Guru and the 7 groups of 5 gurus. And he taught and adhered that very quickly. No abhiman of I am guru, right? I am servant of the gurus. And so many lessons. Oh, and in terms of the Vani, I want to mention about his writings. His writings are so extraordinary that if you didn't meet him ever, and that one time I did meet him, I was stunned. I just walked by and just prayed for his blessings, But if you didn't meet him personally, you can meet him through his words. And the way he wrote, so organized, so much subtlety and nuance in his writings, bringing out the very higher qualities of our Gaudiya Vaishnava conceptions, and mostly the quality of humility and seva to the Vaishnavas. He felt himself a sevak of the Vaishnavas. And, he didn't give orders. One of the things is that he said, I will not give an order generally to his disciples. And I said, why not? If there was some problem, they'd ask him to fix it, to tell this devotee to do that, tell this other devotee to do that. He said, no, I won't do that. Why? Because if I do and they don't obey it, it's an aparad. So in a more subtle way, he would make his desires known. And if one had the initiative and the inspiration to take it up, then you would get the blessings of that. And this is what our Gurudev always mentioned, our Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj. A real disciple is one who will take initiative, right? And take responsibility. And so those 3, they work together very synergistically, taking responsibility and supporting each other. And sometimes devotees would try to criticize one or the other to the other, like little kids. If the father's mean, they'll go to the mother, right? Or if the mother's mean, they'll go to the father and try and divide them. But they won't divide, right? And so these 3 would always reinforce and support each other. Right? So Vama Maharaj, just absolutely remarkable. And I know Gurudev had so much love and considered him like a Shiksha Guru. Right? But Vaman Maharaj always said, why are you not initiating? For years and years, he had wanted Srila Narayana Maharaj to initiate, but Srila Narayana Maharaj would never do it. He would support by shiksha, but he would not initiate until he started going to the West. And then because of the circumstance, and when he did go to the West, Srila Vaman Maharaj wrote the most divine glorification of that. No envy. Oh, what you have done, it's so glorious in the service of our Guru Varga and Mahaprabhu. All blessings unto you. Right? He just poured his affection and mercy. They were so wonderful. And I remember when Srila Ramaraj disappeared, how distraught Gurudev was. He left our parikram and went immediately to that place to perform his samadhi. They had requested him. And even though he left that same day and he got there that early that next morning, the politics of it, some devotees had already done it, which put Gurudev in a very unhappy mood, because the samadhi ceremony, sama adi, it's a ceremony where you are assisting that personality in reuniting with their Ishtadev, with Radha and Krishna, and confirming that. Has to be very qualified and someone who is very close with them. But the thing is, externally, whoever does the samadhi is supposed to be the successor in that mat. So some persons were thinking, oh, if we do this, then we will be the definite successors and no argument will be there. So it was something foolish. But Gurudev went to it and he did it. He did some ceremony later, and then he quickly left and came back to us. But their relationship was so close. And Trivikram Raj also, he was just a little older than Gurudev, just a year or two, and he joined the Mat a year or two earlier. And Gurudev said he liked to guide me and help me. And Gurudev has told some stories in their early days about how they would preach. And Trivikram Raj, if you've ever read his works, his are very also scholarly, very scholarly, but he writes very much about, I guess you could call, more fundamental principles, understanding who is a Vaishnava, who is a real guru, right? What is this, deeper savor? It doesn't mean that he's not absorbed on these higher levels. He most certainly was. There's some videos of him at the Samadhi of Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Godrum, and Trivikram Raj being asked to speak, and he can't speak. He's just overwhelmed, and he's weeping uncontrollably, right, in the place of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. The first parikram I ever came to, under Gurudev's guidance in 1997, it was on the disappearance day of Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Raj. Srila Trivikram was asked to speak, and again, he couldn't speak. His head was down, and they were just heaving. You read about this sometimes, this in separation mood, these uncontrollable sobbing, heaving, deep breaths, and this is what was going on. He was breathing so deeply, just weeping, and he couldn't speak. He just said a few words, and that was it. And I again, the introduction to the Gaudiya culture. We had never seen this kind of thing. And Gurudev, he didn't show that to us. Srila Prabhupada, occasionally it leaked out. But here on these days, and sometimes on the parikram in these places, these deep moods could not be contained in the hearts of these personalities, like Trivikram Raj, right? And Gurudev said that he would guide him. There's a funny story. Gurudev was very young in the service, and they would go on these preaching tours with Bhaktivedanta Keshav Raj. And they would go to these pandos, and you have to understand, in these times, there's no electricity in these villages, no running water, no bus lines. Devotees would have to get on train and walk sometimes miles to go to a place, right? And they would walk into this very small little remote village, and it would be a huge celebration, because in these villages, there's no entertainment. Maybe once or twice a year, a troupe of performers or singers would come through, right, and put on some Leela play, drama, and entertain the people, and they would make their living like that. So when the devotees came, the whole village would come out. And Bhaktivedanta Keshe Maharaj, he had something very advanced, following in the footsteps of his Guru Maharaj, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, to use technology, whatever you have, in the service of preaching. He had a slide projector, right? And I guess it was operated by a battery or something, right? And they'd put up a big sheet and they would show slides of, Krishna Leela, pastimes. And then he would speak. And for the villagers, they didn't even have paintings in these villages. People are so poor, you can't understand how poor the villages were. And all of a sudden, on this giant sheet, they're seeing these beautiful paintings, right? And then the melodious, rasic voices of Bhaktivedanta Keshe Maharaj, and he'd be speaking and filling their hearts with this pastime where they're seeing these pictures, and it was very powerful, right? One day, Gurudev forgot the slide projector, and oh my God! And they realized they have to set up for the pandal. He forgot it. He didn't know what. He was so worried. He's going to chastise by Guru Maharaj. And Trivikram Maharaj said, "Don't worry, I'll handle it." So it comes time, and Bhaktivedanta Keshe Maharaj says, "Where's the slide projector? We want the slides now." And Trivikram Maharaj says, "Oh, Guru Maharaj, it was about to rain. So we didn't, because it, outside and with the battery and all. So we thought we would not bring it because it would be harmed in the rain." Oh, acha, okay. And Gurudev said he never forgot that, how Trivikram Maharaj would protect him like an older brother. And Trivikram Maharaj was very protective. He had this, this fearsome reputation in the Mat of being harsh, like a disciplinarian, right? Gurudev was no slouch either. I mean, Gurudev used to sometimes beat the brahmacharis, even with his shoes. They were terrified of him. Because Gurudev, remember, sometimes these great devotees, they will appear, but they will appear in a family or in a situation that may match their moods in some ways. And Gurudev, he was a policeman. And he was a very good policeman. I mean, even within just a few years, he was promoted so much. He was famous. Some other time we'll tell stories about Gurudev's exploits as an early preacher and running into people that found out that, oh, you are that personality, that, Narayan Tiwari, the famous policeman. And oh, yeah. Anyway, where was I? So Trivikram Raj, the nature. So he could be harsh. We heard that pastime, calling his wife's bluff. Okay, you bring the kerosene, I'll bring the matches. And so he's very strict with the brahmacharis, and nobody wanted to serve him. They tried to get him to get personal servants, but nobody wanted to. They just stay a little bit and then they'd run away, fearful of him. Ultimately, one devotee did become his servant. Now he's known as Puri Maharaj. I forget his brahmachari name. But every year on this day, he would speak and he'd tell Trivikram Maharaj stories and he'd be weeping. And you couldn't get him to stop. I mean, he would have, half hour or so and Srila Gurudev would try and get him to stop, and he just couldn't stop telling story after story. But actually, and Trivikram Maharaj, he was a homeopathic expert. And so he'd help the devotees with the medicine. Actually, Rasikananda Maharaj, used to be Rasik Mohan from America, served in Radhe Kunj. He's here in Ellenville, New York now. Now he's got a preaching center in Queens as well. When he was a very young boy, his parents, Nanda Gopal and Manjulali, they were in Navadvip, and he got really, really sick and nothing could help him. And they took him to Trivikram Maharaj, and he gave him some Ayurvedic medicine, and very quickly he got better. He could be very gentle and kind. But brahmacharis were afraid of him. Now, the first time I saw him, again, was in this 2000 and, oh no, let's go back to 1997, right. I had come to the Parikram because I'd met Gurudev in Northern California. And I knew him. I had met him. I hadn't met him, but I'd seen him in 1977 when Srila Prabhupada disappeared. I was in America, but took a flight and was able to get there for the last day in Vrindavan of the ceremonies, and then in Calcutta, where Gurudev oversaw the making of a very large Pushpa Samadhi. And one of my godbrothers pointed him out in the temple room, and said, oh, he's the one that came and helped us and did all that. And I looked at him, and he looked about 10 feet tall. His gravity was so amazing. And he looked exactly like he looked later in those years when he came to America, just his hair was not white. It was lightly gray. But so in 97, when I met him and they said, oh, they're doing parikram, you should come. So I said, okay, I'm going to come. But I didn't know anything. And now at that point, everybody was accepting Srila Gurudev as a Shiksha Guru. Now, this is a cause of great confusion amongst many of the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, because we didn't really fully grasp the idea of Shiksha Guru. I remember back after Srila Prabhupada disappeared, studying that concept in Chaitanya Charitamrita, reading Srila Prabhupada's own words that Shiksha Guru and Diksha Guru are non-different. One who discriminates between them is an offender, right? But by this time, so many so-called Shiksha Gurus had gone off the rails. So the idea was that, oh, if you're accepting him as a Shiksha Guru, then you're cutting your relationship with Srila Prabhupada. It's either or. And everyone is calling him Gurudev, and I said, what am I going to do? Maybe they have different roles. Maybe Shiksha Guru is in this category and Diksha Guru is like this. What do I do? Can I accept him? I want to accept him. I don't want to give up Srila Prabhupada. What do I do? And so I asked Trivikram Raj one morning in Rup Sanatan. He was there. The lecture was over. Gurudev had been speaking. Everything was over. And he was just sitting on the side in a chair. And one brahmachari was with him. And so I said, I'm going to ask him. They already told me he's a pure devotee. So I said, he can give me this instruction. And he's very dear with Srila Narayan Maharaj. And I had it all worked out. And I said, oh, Maharaj, I have a question. What's the difference between Shiksha Guru and Diksha Guru? Is it that one, and I was going to say Shiksha Guru does this, Diksha Guru does that. Is it that, and then you're sitting in a chair and I'm kneeling down. He looks down at me like this. And all of a sudden he smiles and his eyes are really bright. And he says, there's no difference. And I went, what? And I said, but, and he goes, there's no difference. And I, there's no difference. And he said it so joyfully and powerfully, this Shakti, the joy communicated to me that don't worry about it. There's no problem. They're non-different. You're not losing something from one or the other. They're the same. They're both sent from Krishna to help you. They're on the same page. That same message of these three pillars of the Gaudiya Math, they were the same. And he gave that to me. I owe him an eternal debt because he removed the barrier. Remember they talked about him removing anarthas? He removed the barrier of me being able to surrender to Gurudev in that way, and which would reinforce my relationship with Srila Prabhupada. And the reason I was able to go to him, and with that somewhat confidence, was because some days before we had come to Vrindavan, everybody was in Mathura. I got there a few days early before the parikram. And so it's then that I heard that, well, actually, there's 3 pure devotees here. I said, what? 3 pure devotees? How can there be 3 pure devotees? We had this idea there's only one on the earth at a time, right? There's only one. No, they have 3. And Srila Maharaj isn't here, but Trivikram Maharaj is here. I said, what? And then that evening, everybody would be hanging out in front of Gurudev's room, right? Hoping that he'd come out, hoping they'd get a glimpse, because he'd gone all over the world and everyone felt a deep personal connection. But then Trivikram Maharaj was giving a lecture down in the temple room. And I thought, well, I could just sit up here and gossip with my friends, or I could go down and hear from the other pure devotee, right? And I think that would probably be a better thing to do. And you know, come know about the, you know, learn, develop a relationship. So I went down and he was speaking, and he spoke very good English. I don't know why he was speaking in English at the time. And I didn't realize it then, but you know, it was just a handful of devotees, all Indian brahmacharis. I didn't realize, but there was one Australian devotee there also, who had become a very good friend since then, Gokul from Perth. He was there. And this story, I thought I was the only one that knew the story, that there were no other witnesses. But years later, I told this story, and he said, he was in the audience. He says, oh, I was there. I heard that. And so I thought, oh, good. Anyway, here's the story. He's given this very beautiful lecture, and he's talking about the renunciation of Raghunath Das, right? In very great detail. And as Gurudev would say, one day you will also have to be like this, right? And he had a deep voice, and it could tremor sometimes, you know, it's like thunder, you know, and he's speaking very strongly. And then after he made that really strong point about that level of renunciation and surrender, you know, and how rare it is, and this is the real platform you have to come to, then he just turns and he looks at me over on the side. Again, he's up there, I'm down here, and he goes, what do you think of that, white man? I was so happy, you know, white man. And he was laughing almost when he said it, you know. It was like, it was such an intimate moment. I thought, oh, he's kind to me, you know. And the idea of white man was, hey, look, you're coming from a really debased culture. You got a long way to go, but this is it, you know. And if you take it, you can do it. What do you think about it, white man? And and you know, we had been experiencing a lot of that, you know, Videshi, you know, a lot of devotees in India, and not devotees, they call you Videshi. Deshi means countryman, the people, right? The civilized people. Videshi means, you know, you're not one of us. You know, you're from some other place. But when he said white man, he said it with such affection. Okay, you're in this white body. And I said, oh, I really like him. I like him. And that's why I could go and ask him that question, because I had faith in his words. And I thought ever since then, lava matra sadhu sangha sava siddhi hoy. Just a moment, just a few words can mean so much. Those are indelibly imprinted in my heart. A connection and a debt, you know, and a genuine confirmation of the unity of vision between him, Srila Vamana Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, how wonderful they were together. You know, I've been kind of rambling on. I just looked at the clock. I don't know. The other day, I was told they didn't have any other speakers, you know, that nobody else was going to speak. And so could I say a few words? I wasn't anticipating speaking about Brahman Raj. And there's more stories. You could speak more about Trivikram Raj as well. But I think I've probably exceeded what I'm supposed to do. I'm always getting chastised about that, rightfully so, because sometimes, you know, so are there other speakers? Have I really trounced on everybody's time here? What's going on?
It was really only. Oh, go ahead, Dudani Maharaj.
I was just going to thank Vaikanis Maharaj for his Pushpanjali. Very, very enlightening. I just wanted to add one sentence that Srila Trivikram Maharaj said that has etched in my mind forever. He said, I want to die alone and unknown.
I thought that was very, very profound. I always remember that. He had that mood his whole life to be away from the center stage, so to speak. And he worked so hard in support of the center stage, but he never considered himself on the center stage. He was always the support. And when he said this one time, I want to die alone and unknown, this I thought was the embodiment of humility. But there are so many other stories, as Vaikanas Maharaj has related, but I just wanted to add that one line, alone and unknown. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Maharaj.
And-
Very nice.
And when he did leave this world or vision, there's a place in Koladweep, down near the bridge, right, that you cross over to Godrum. There's this area where many very small samadhis of Gaudiya Vaishnavas are. And then one was given for him. But one devotee from Bangalore, named Sham Grihastha, thought this is not right. And he thought, I have to build a samadhi for him. And he raised funds, and with his own efforts also, arranged for a samadhi to be built. And if you go there, it's a very beautiful granite samadhi. It took some time to make, handcrafted by the masons there. And, compared to some of the samadhis we see nowadays, but for everything there, it's quite nice. I mean, it's raised up, it's high, and he won't be unknown. I mean, in the hearts of Vaishnavas, he will, his memory will be there, and his katha, and his katha has been preserved in the Rays of the Harmonist. Very excellent speaker, and one other thing, just in brief, he took special joy in the company of Srila Gurudev. In fact, he would even go to Gurudev's village. Gurudev heard about this. He went to his village and he would roll in the dust at the place where Gurudev took birth, take the dust of that place. And Gurudev was aghast because he said, this is my senior, my godbrother, what are you doing? And he asked him about it. And in the most humble way, Trivikram Maharaj glorified Gurudev and said, I consider your birthplace so sacred that I had to go there and take the dust, and to be benedicted by you. And when they would go on parikram together, whether it was Navadvip or Vrindavan, Trivikram Maharaj would also be asked to speak. And quite often, he would speak in opposition to what Gurudev was saying. Sometimes even glorifying the devotees in Dwarka as being greater than the Brajbasis, glorifying Krishna as defeating the gopis. We mentioned the other day Viravan. There's a big debate that they had, and he was saying, yes, Krishna's defeated the gopis. Vihara, it means defeated. The gopis were defeated by Krishna here. And then he would say something about some other, maybe he would glorify Chandravali or Rukmini. And he just did that to excite Gurudev, that Gurudev would say, oh, I can't let that stand. And then he would draw from Gurudev so many sweet sentiments. And then Gurudev would say something to cut the argument of Trivikram Maharaj, and then Trivikram Maharaj would say something else to cut his argument. And when he would do that, Gurudev would just lean back and laugh in the most happy way. And then Gurudev would say something, and then Trivikram Maharaj would just laugh. And the two of them had such a relationship. It was so beautiful. You knew that they were just goading each other on. And they asked Trivikram Maharaj about it, because sometimes you'd think, well, does he really believe that? And he says, no, I just want to poke the nest, poke the bee's nest, and then, arouse Srila Narayan Maharaj so he'll speak even more sweetly and more completely about these topics. And you could see it. It's very happy times when those two are together. And sometimes at some parikrams, devotees reenact those debates. And it brings out, yes, Mudragat especially, because Maharaj, Samudragar and Bhimasena, that fight that they had, and Trivikram Maharaj would always take the side. Bhima was the greatest devotee. And then Gurudev, no, Raj Samudragari, no, he's the greatest devotee. Samudra Sain, he's the greatest devotee. And they had very sweet, nice arguments about it, many different considerations. So Trivika Maharaj was a gem, but as Maharaj said, he liked to be, he sometimes he would live a little outside of the mat. He would wash his own clothes. He would sew
make his own hats.
Yeah, make his own hats, make his own cloth. He'd ride a little bicycle around, to get around. There's one funny story that Damodar Maharaj tells, because Damodar Maharaj is very close with him, because they had the same brahmachari name, Radhanath. And Srivik Maharaj just took a shine to him for some reason. And he was with him one time. I'm not sure, was it in Calcutta or Navadvip? But a man came before Srivik Maharaj, and he had a big fancy suitcase. And he was saying, oh, Maharaj, and he's glorifying him. I want to surrender to you. I want Krishna Bhakti. And Srivik Maharaj begins to insult him and tell him all these things, what lack of qualification. You want Krishna Bhakti, then you must do this, you must do that. Kind of like Gaur Kishore Maharaj. Oh, you want Krishna Bhakti? Here's some kopans. Take these kopans. And people just run away, right? Run away. And this man, Srivik Maharaj, taunted him in so many ways, challenging him. The man fled in fear with his suitcase. And Srivik Maharaj turned to our Damaraj and said, oh, do you know who he was? He was one of the wealthiest people in Calcutta, Crorepati, right? That suitcase was full of rupees, lakhs and lakhs of rupees. He came here to try to buy my affection, that I don't need his money. I don't care anything about it. So I'm independent. I only love, Radha and Krishna. And so I can speak like this. I'm completely detached. And this was his mood. His mood. We were taught in a different way. Because Srila Prabhupada, he was building a mission, and he would encourage anyone, rogues, thieves, everyone, to give their money to benefit themselves in some way, right, to push on the mission of Mahaprabhu. He would accept that. He would be untainted by it, but he would accept it. But Srivik Maharaj's mood and example is different. Said, I don't want to have a relationship with such a person. He will try to bring me down to his level, so I'm going to show him completely detached, right? So, yeah, many, many stories. Anyway, he was a great, great, wonderful, wonderful devotee. And we all can continue to seek his blessings by reading his words. Go to the Rays of the Harmonist. Go to the old videos and see him speaking. See him arguing with Gurudev. Watch their faces. Enjoy that mood and that ras. And Srila Vana Maharaj, unfortunately, Tridandi Maharaj had much more opportunity to see him and see he and Gurudev interact. But I have heard from the mouths of Vaishnavas, that's where my understanding comes. And I'm happy with that as well, to have been able to associate with those who did associate with him and thus imbibe. Oh, you want to hear another Vaman Maharaj story? This is really interesting.
There's one about Srila Turikram Maharaj that we were in Varanasi. And I think it was about 97, perhaps 98. There was a big group of us there staying in Varshana, in another Modi Bhavan there. And it was on Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada's disappearance day. Ashram Maharaj there, we were all there. And we were all chanting Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. And Srila Srivikram Maharaj didn't like it. He didn't like us chanting Jai Prabhupada.
Right.
So there was a whole sort of like resurgence of appreciation, actually, of who was Prabhupada.
Right.
That was the result. That was even though it appeared contrary initially that he was objecting to being called Prabhupada, but actually the way he spoke and so on inspired us all to think more about Prabhupada rather than less. So it was a very memorable occasion.
Right.
Tremendous personality. So many pastimes.
Srila Vaman Maharaj.
Going through my head now.
Yeah. This is how it works. Srila
Yeah.
Vaman Maharaj, like acharyas of old, would sometimes manifest some divine mystic potency, because that inspires faith in the hearts of different kinds of persons, and also shows he did it as a matter of compassion. There's this one really sweet story. I can't remember which city it was in, but there was one disciple, very nice disciple of his, but who was very poor, and he had a house, but it was such a poor little house, and it had a leaky roof, and it was raining very hard, and the devotees wanted to take Srila Vamanaraj to the house of a wealthy disciple. But this disciple was really devoted. He said, no, I'm going to stay in the house of my disciple so-and-so. And the disciple was kind of aghast that, oh, my quarters are so unfit, but Vamanaraj, he wanted to be with him. And he wanted to excite. And even though the house was, very poor, it did have a leaky roof, he stayed with him. On another occasion, they had done a series of lectures, and they had been at one devotee's house, and he said, oh, Maharaj, could you have breakfast at my house tomorrow? And the devotee said, no, his other servants said, no, we're leaving by train tomorrow. We have to be at the train station very early. Guru Maharaj can't be at your house for breakfast. We're going to have a simple breakfast at another place. And so they left. And they, had their breakfast at that other place they were. They took the train. And sometime later, maybe the next parikram or something, this devotee, this householder, was speaking with the devotees, and he said, oh, Guru Maharaj is so merciful. He came to my house and had breakfast. And the devotees there said, what? You liar. You're just trying to glorify yourself. Guru Maharaj was with us that day. We had to leave for the train very early. He didn't have breakfast at your house. Quit lying. And he said, no, he did. He did. And I served him this and that and that. And then he gave this whole list of preparations. And so they went back to Srila Vaman Maharaj, and they said, oh, this disciple says that, you had breakfast with him that day. And, but you were with us on the train. Why is he speaking like that? And Srila Vaman Maharaj said, oh, bring my journal, because he would keep a diary of what he did and where he went. And on that day, he made an entry. And he said, oh, that day went to breakfast at so-and-so's house. And he had a whole list of that exact preparations. So actually what he had done is he had gone to that person's house while he had also been with the other devotees. And he sometimes did things like that. There was a story one time when he was going on a preaching engagement, and he arrived at the train station at about midnight, and the town that he had to go to was like quite a few miles away. And again, in rural India, it's not like there's rickshaws everywhere, especially at midnight, no lights or anything. So he just started walking. And he walked for many hours towards the village, and then all of a sudden he came upon a big wedding party. And it was a huge wedding party going on. Festivals, everybody, there's food, all kinds of things. And they saw a sadhu and they said, oh, come to our wedding party. And he was there, and they asked him to give blessings. He gave blessings, right? All these things were going on. And he was interacting, and they were so happy, so happy. And then he said, oh, but I'm late. I have to go back to, I'm on my way to engagement. I have to be there at a certain time in the morning. And we're very far. Oh, don't worry. We can give you a horse and a carriage. And we'll give you some fruits to take with you. And so they gave him a horse and carriage, and Vamanaraj said, somehow or other, I don't know how quickly we made it there. It seemed like the time passed in no time at all. Very quickly we were there. And when I arrived, I had the fruit basket. And he recounted his experience to the local people. And they said, what? And they said, the wedding party? You saw this wedding party? And let's see that fruit. And the fruit was from places very distant. These were not local fruits at all. They're very exotic fruits from many places. And they say, you met the ghost wedding party. Years ago, there was a very wealthy group that was having a wedding party, and a huge lightning storm came, and they all died there. And they all became ghosts. And they're stuck celebrating that wedding party. But and sometimes people will see that, right? And you were there, but nobody's seen it like you saw it. And they explain that, but then after that, nobody ever saw the wedding party again. Because Srila Vamana Maharaj, he would do these things and then he would deliver these ghosts. By his association there and his blessings, they were all delivered. So he freed them from that. Because if you die unexpectedly or in a traumatic situation, that can trigger a ghost body. You're just not ready for it. And so he freed that entire party, and no one was ever troubled by that again. In Vrindavan at Keshigat, this is a story they tell in Vrindavan all the time. There was one brahmachari. There are ghosts down at Keshigat, lots of ghosts. Many people have left their bodies, drowned themselves in despair in the Jamuna there, thinking that they'll get some liberation or something, but they become ghosts. And so one brahmachari is down there, and he met this beautiful young girl, right? And she became attached to him. And somehow or other, in his room in the mat, she would suddenly appear. And they would be talking, and she was very attached to him. And the other devotees in the mat, his door would be locked, and they would hear him talking with some girl. And say, how did a girl get in here? Well, what is this? And they would knock on the door, and then they'd get in, and there's nobody there. And they tried to tell him, oh, this is some ghost. No, she's a very beautiful girl. We're going to get married, And I said, no, it's a ghost. Don't you realize they're going to try and take you? She's going to take you and kill you and be with you that way. No, no. And he was very attached to this girl. Apparently she's very beautiful. So finally they convinced him. And so he told her, I can't be with you anymore. I know what you are. We can't be married. And she became very angry. And she threatened to kill him, threatened to take him and drown him in the Jamuna. And then they told Srila Vamana Maharaj about this. And then he came, and I can't remember the details, whether he confronted or just in the room or whatever, but he saved that brahmachari and that poor distraught ghostly lady, delivered her from her condition. He did that a lot. He had some special mercy towards these poor, unfortunate entities where he would deliver them. Yeah, so it's I told it kind of fragmented because I only told it once or twice, heard it once or twice, maybe 20 years ago in Vrindavan, but he was known for that.
There's another pastime also that Parajata Maharaj used to tell. When he was in a car going and they ran out of petrol, they were in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night, and suddenly someone came with a can of petrol and for them. And it was Srila Vana Maharaj knew that it was a ghost was doing it, but he had a can of petrol for an old ambassador that they were driving.
Yeah.
They filled up the car, and then that person just vanished. And Srila Vana Maharaj was just smiling. I mean, he had some connection with those ethereal personalities,
Yeah.
Strange.
Yeah.
Okay, Maharaj.
All right. Well, I guess we can stop here. What a glorious day. It was always a very beautiful day in Vrindavan when we would celebrate this under Gurudev's direction. And Gurudev would speak fondly of his god brothers also, sharing wonderful stories and his own deep affection and attachment for them. And then to hear the disciples of Srila Vamana Maharaj and also their relationship with Trivikram Maharaj, very, very nice. And the culture of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, just and the beauty of it would come out on those days. Yeah, very, very wonderful. So,
Jai, Jai
thank you.
ho.
Jai,
Thank you,
Jai,
Lord. Jai.
Thank,
Jai. Thank you
thanks
both
for
so
organizing
much.
and getting Sripad Ban Maharaj. That's a rare, he's very busy, you know. Gurudev said very beautiful things about him because when he would go and do his preaching, Gurudev said, whatever he collects, he brings back everything and gives to me. Right? And also, and then Gurudev would give him what he would need to start again. And I remember when Gurudev would call different devotees to speak, some devotees would be, Gurudev would stop them because it's talking too long or try to correct them. But only Banraj, the others, they had a lot of familiarity with Gurudev, and sometimes they would, continue to talk or okay, they hear the direction. But whenever Gurudev would correct Banraj, all of a sudden he become like a child. He was so learned, Banraj, he speaks so nicely, but Gurudev, he would correct you. If he corrected you, it's great because he would refine your conception. And when Banraj would be stopped and corrected, he would become, and immediately completely attentive and submissive, to that instruction in a very special way. I thought, oh, wow, he has, intimacy, but he also has great reverence. He never crossed that line of inappropriate intimacy with Gurudev, even though Gurudev had a lot of affection. One time I heard him say, none of you can do what he does. Whether it be his sadhana, his discipline, like Sri Dandamar said about his dedication to preaching around the world, he is indefatigable in his energy. So it's great that we got to hear from him. Okay. Jai.
Thank you
He
so
says
much,
if he can't
Sripad.
carry guitar at least 5 times a day, his life is not perfect. Srila Bon Maharaj
Right.
says 5 times a day he has to give Hari Katha.
Right.
Jai Maharaj, Jai Srila Bon Maharaj,
Right.
Jai Anuradha.
Jai.
Radhe Shyam.
Jai.
Okay.
जय श्रीपति नंदी महाराज की जय, श्रीपद वैखानस महाराज की जय, श्रीपद वन महाराज की जय, श्रील भक्तिवेदांत वामन गोसाई महाराज की जय, श्रील भक्तिवेदांत त्रिविक्रम गोसाई महाराज की जय. Thank you all so much for such extended glorification. I could not in any way interrupt or disturb this glorification because it was so beautiful, and really just brought back so much in the readings, that many of us who have not had the opportunity to have that intimate association with Srila Vamana Maharaj or Srila Tirukam Gosai Maharaj, that you all have expounded upon. And also, Vaikanas Maharaj and Tridani Maharaj, you both glorified Sripad Van Maharaj, who is also a disciple of Srila Vamana Maharaj. So quite naturally, we can learn from this that it's not possible to fully glorify Shri Guru without glorifying their limbs, and that includes their disciples, their own parikar. So you have also exemplified these things. So I'm very grateful to you both. And that also, I believe Nalini Didi, she is on to be able to do our closing kirtan. But before then, please also join us tomorrow. That tomorrow's the Tirubhav Tithi of Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who without him, where would we be in the West? So tomorrow we will begin the program at 11:45 a.m. UK time, and it will be a very extended program until 5:30 p.m. UK time also. So please, everyone, come for that. And Nalini Didi, if you could please unmute and close us out. Hare Krishna.
We have to go to our Guru Puja, so I'm going to go. Thank you very much. Gaur Premanande Haribol.
Okay. I'm gonna sing page 210, Tumi Sareshwareshwara, because it mentions Lord Shiva, and Srila Chivaka Maharaj is very much like Lord Shiva. So I thought I'd sing that. Okay. Tomi Sareswareswara Brajendra Kumar Tomara Chaya Vishwe Shrijana Samhar Tomi Sareswareswara Brajendra Kumar Tomara Chaya Vishwe Shrijana Samhara Tabai Chamato Brahma Karena Shrijana Tabai Chamato Vishnu Karena Palana Tabai Chamate Shiva Karena Samhara Tabai Chamate Maya Shije Karagara Tumi Sareswareswara Brajendra Kumar Tomara Chaya Vishwe Shrijana Samhara Tabai Chamate Jive Janama Marano Samridhi Nipata Dukha Sukha Samgatano Miche Maya Bara Jiva আশেপাশে ফিরে তবাই বিনা কিছু করিতে না পারে তুমি তো রক্ষকায়ার পালকায় আমার তোমারা চরণ বিনা আশ নাহি আর তোমারা চরণ বিনা আশা নাহি আর তুমি সরেশ্বরেশ্বর ব্রজেন্দ্র কুমার তোমারা ইচ্ছায়া বিশ্বে সৃজনা সংহার নিজ বল চেষ্ট প্রতি ভরস ছাড়িয়া নিজ বল চেষ্ট প্রতি ভরস ছাড়িয়া তোমরা ইচ্ছায়া নির্ভর করিয়া তোমরা ইচ্ছায়া নির্ভর করিয়া ভক্তি বিনোদয়তি দীনায় কিঞ্চন তোমরা ইচ্ছায় তার জীবন মরণ তোমরা ইচ্ছায় তার জীবন মরণ তুমি সরেশ্বরেশ্বর ব্রজেন্দ্র কুমার তোমারা ইচ্ছায়া বিশ্বে সৃজনা সংহার তুমি সরেশ্বরেশ্বর ব্রজেন্দ্র কুমার তোমারা ইচ্ছায়া বিশ্বে সৃজনা সংহার দয়া ব্রজেন্দ্র নন্দন শ্যাম সুন্দর ব্রজেন্দ্র নন্দন শ্যাম সুন্দর ব্রজেন্দ্র নন্দন শ্যাম সুন্দর Brajendra Nandana Shama Sundar. Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva, Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya, Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva, Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva. Srila Bhakti Vedanta Vamana Goswami, Bhakti Vedanta Vamana Goswami, Bhakti Vedanta Tivikam Goswami, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Tivikam Goswami, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Bhakti Vinod, 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 Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari